What's happening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Unparalleled Sports Talk with your host, Kwame Fisher-Jones. As always, I am him. Talking Super Bowl and NFL, so I'm joined by my man Chris Franklin of NJ.com, general assignment reporter. Super Bowl Sunday, Chris. I don't really know what else to say, man. Some things are just left unsaid. Super Bowl Sunday, let's go. There's not much more to say about it. But before we get into the Super Bowl, I want to touch on some house cleaning issues, I guess, some news and notes. A couple things that kind of piqued my interest this week. First, and we were talking about before I hit the record button, Chip Kelly, offensive coordinator for the Las Vegas Raiders. It's an interesting hire. They also hired Marvin Lewis. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that. Marvin Lewis is going to serve as kind of like a assistant head coach in capacity because they have a defensive coordinator. So I don't know why you need an assistant head coach that used to be a defensive coordinator. I guess he's there to help the current defensive coordinator. But the big hire for me was Chip Kelly as offensive coordinator. I think it's awful. It's like, yeah, like it's just a. I don't think it's going to hurt them though, because I feel like Pete Carroll will figure things out as he goes. But why Chip Kelly? What does he offer an NFL team at this juncture of his career?
I think it's two things you can look into that. One is you see a lot of the newer stuff still continuing to come from the college game, and some of the elements we've seen in terms of the motions, the unique formations, and he did some of that before. And some of the stuff we see that he did back when he first joined the Eagles is still being used today, and he sees that it's around there. So I think that time in college allowed him to see some stuff, allowed him to get some different perspectives from different teams he had to study and what have you. And the other thing is, and you're seeing it, we'll see it when we talk about the Super Bowl later, but you see it in terms of some of these successful teams. The amount of no huddle offense that you're using it, if you use it right, you can't run what he did before and go no huddle the whole entire game. You burn your defense
Mm.
out. But if you time it the right way, when certain players are off on the field, you can gain a big bad. You most of the time you keep teams in base, and if you keep teams in base with the stuff you know what you're going to run, especially with the personnel you want to have on the field, that'll just give you a big advantage. So I think in those two ways overall, it's fine. Now having Marcus Mariota there, eh, eh, I'm not feeling that. But that's the rumor that he's going to be the one that they're trying to go after. But they need to draft a quarterback anyway. So him as a bridge, I get it. Eh, I'll like hold your nose and do it, but
Yeah,
overall, I think it could
it's
be
just
different. Well,
it's like ugh. So that's what we're going. Where do you know offhand? I don't know where they're picking in the draft. I have
um,
no idea. I'm about to check real fast. But is there a quarterback in the draft that would fit Chip Kelly? But here's the thing:
not
Chip
in
Kelly had
six,
success. Yeah, I've got what are they? You said the six.
six.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so yeah, they drafted a tight end last year in Brock Bowers. Chip Kelly in his most fruitful, where he had the most success, he didn't have NFL talent at Oregon. A lot of his guys didn't translate well into the NFL. I may be forgetting somebody, but as I think of it quickly offhand, LeGarrette Blunt had some success. Obviously, Marcus Mariota has managed to stay in the league. I know some people don't consider it a success, but I feel like if you play multiple years at a professional level, that's some level of success. So I give him credit for that. But they really don't have a lot of game breakers there. The Raiders don't have a lot of game breakers. The Raiders don't have a lot of explosive players. The Raiders don't have a lot of anything offensive. So maybe it's one of those things where scheme takes precedent over maybe skill. Maybe that could be what it is.
well, you look at what they did with Nick Foles. I mean, you look at him, by all accounts, he's not the most athletic guy per se. And you look at his like, you look at the quarterbacks that year that he went 27 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. You look at the other quarterbacks around, he was like Brady was still in the league. Yeah, a lot. He's not Russell, but no, Russell was the Russell Wilson, yeah, because they came in the same year.
Yeah,
That's that you're looking like Nick Foles is in the Hall of his jersey was in the Hall of Fame, throwing 7 touchdowns in one game, and he's a Pro Bowl MVP, I think, that year too.
yeah.
So you look at that stuff, you're like, huh? But it translates. It's just a matter of, and I think the biggest misconstrued about Kelly's office is you always have to have somebody to run the read option. It's very helpful to do that, but you can run so many other formations. And it's also a run focus system too. So as long as they get a decent running back, which you can get in the third, fourth round, and to add to this team, to that way you can keep it if you don't do a huddle stuff, and eventually you can not wear out your running back, and you get a decent receiver, that's fine. And I want to, and at six. I don't think I'm looking at Jalen Milroe's the guy I think it would fit there for me. I think he'd be a good fit. And overall, I don't think you could have to draft him at 6. You can get him probably late first round, maybe second, if everything holds right now. So get the best player available at 6. Maybe Miller falls to the 6th pick in the second round, maybe. But I think that would be the way I'd go with them, especially.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't like it, but I'm willing to give it a shot. I hope that makes sense. I don't like it, but I'm willing to give it a shot because in the end, what are we dealing with? What are the Raiders? What were the Raiders' options at offensive coordinator? If you go with a young guy and you don't have the skill, then it's like, well, the young guy doesn't really have a lot of talent to work with, so we don't know if he's a good play caller. With Chip Kelly, you know one thing he can do is scheme his butt off. And you mentioned Nick Foles. I always laugh when people talk about Nick Foles and Chip Kelly because when Chip Kelly left, really thereafter Nick Foles won a Super Bowl. So he went from losing in the first round at home to winning a Super Bowl. So that, that's worth a grain of salt. So another thing, let's transition. Speaking of Super Bowls, winning a Super Bowl, unheralded Super Bowl, Eli Manning won 2 Super Bowls with the New York Giants, but was not voted into the NFL Hall of Fame. I don't have all the members of the class, but I believe Eli Manning is a Hall of Fame player. We're playing semantics when we say things like he had Hall of Fame moments, but he didn't have a Hall of Fame career. That doesn't make sense on the surface. It's either a good restaurant or it's not a bad or it's a bad restaurant. They've got some good dishes, but all of their dishes aren't good. But it's a good restaurant because they've got some good. I'm serious. They've got some good sneakers, but like, why does he have to have all the facets to have a Hall of Fame career? He won 2 Super Bowls. He beat the twice, arguably the greatest quarterback of all time, arguably the greatest coach of all time. He did it without one legitimate Hall of Fame threat on the outside, one legitimate Hall of Fame threat in his backfield, one legitimate Hall of Fame offensive lineman. I mean, at some point, the guy had to be good enough. So why is he not a Hall of Famer?
And I have this is where I'd blank on in terms of like if this was his first time. This is his first year, wasn't it?
I believe
His
it was
first
his
year?
first year.
Yeah. That's why I think it is. Because if you're a first ballot Hall, I think they reserve that whole first ballot Hall of Famer very serious. When it comes to some of the reporters that vote on this award and Hall of Fame guys that are voting that sit in that room during Super Bowl week, I think that is reserved for them. And when you look at it, he has I think his numbers are okay. If guys like his Jim Plunk and Gabe Safe, like guys like that, if some of these middling guys get in there, and it was a different era, but I think you do that. You mentioned the Super Bowls. I think the
Yeah, it was
biggest
his
thing that
first
could,
ballot. It was the
yeah,
first
and
time.
that's why I think that's another thing too. Because say somebody's a first ballot Hall of Famer, that's carries heavy. You got to be Jim Brown, got to be Tom Brady. Those guys are like first ballot Hall of Famers. First time you get it, you know they're going to be in. And to me, Eli's not a first ballot guy. And if I'm going by the thinking of some of the guys that I know are on on that voting panel, that weighs heavily sometimes because the significance of that in terms of it.
I think next year he gets in.
I think maybe next year or the year after that. I think that's one or two things he gets that. It's not like you mentioned the Super Bowls. They're all quarterbacks always judge on Super Bowls, and that's what it came for. So yeah, it'd be when you beat the team, the only team that was looking to be undefeated throughout the whole thing, playoff, regular season, and playoffs, and to do that and to have the longevity he did in New York of all markets.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that.
And to beat the greatest, arguably the greatest coach of all time. I believe it's Andy Reid, but if someone were to say Bill Belichick, I'm not going to go, oh, you're out of your mind. And to be arguably the greatest quarterback of all time and Tom Brady twice, twice, twice. So look, I don't know what makes a Hall of Famer because in my eyes, Eric Allen and Seth Joyner are Hall of Famers. And I'm still blown away that they're not in the Hall of Fame,
Oh,
specifically Eric Allen.
he's in.
Eric Allen got
He
in?
got, yeah, he got in. Yeah, he got in this weekend. Yeah,
Get out of here. I got a
yeah, he got in.
t-shirt made and everything.
Yeah,
I
he got
said I
in.
didn't have the class. That's what I get. Did he really?
Yeah, he really got in. Him, Sterling Sharp, uh, Antonio Gates, and I'm drawing a blank on the other one. Yeah, he got in. It
Yep.
was Jared Allen, because I got weird because
Good
the
for
way
him.
they the way
And
they announced it on
last year,
TV,
yeah. But I'm
they
sorry.
I'm sorry, the way they announced it last year, I thought they were going alphabetical because they said Jared Allen first, and then they went to sort of like, you got to be kidding me. They skipped over Eric Allen, and the camera panned over. They were going to do him fourth, but the camera panned over the wrong person saying, oh, Sterling Sharp. It was Eric Allen. It was like, wait, oh, he got in. And then they announced Eric Allen. Yeah, he's finally in.
Yeah, Eric Allen was a Hall of Fame player, Hall of Fame cornerback, one of the most. I mean, you had Deion Sanders in that time, you had Albert Lewis at that time. You had some tremendous cornerbacks in that era. But Eric Allen is right up there with him. He was one of the
Yeah.
best. So I'm glad he finally got in. Now I got to get my T-shirt made for Seth Joyner. Because Seth Joyner is a Hall of Fame linebacker as well. And I don't know what the criteria is for why he hasn't made it, but he should be. Now, speaking of Hall of Fame, two coaches are going to be taking the field in the Super Bowl. One is guaranteed to be in Hall of Fame. The other one is Nick Sirianni. I was part of the bus that wanted to drive over him and get him out of town. It was. I'm not going to lie. He proved me wrong. If Sirianni wins this Super Bowl, and we'll get to our predictions a little later on. You know what? When Sirianni wins this Super Bowl,
Ooh.
where does that place him in the pantheon of head coaches?
If you look at his numbers, not just the
Yeah,
regular season,
yeah,
and you look at
yeah.
the Super Bowls he's already been to, he's been to 2 Super Bowls. You look at the people, he has a coaching tree already. It's going to grow. I think after this game, it's going to grow. So you look at all that stuff, he's already up there among the good coaches. I think I'd probably put him right now. Andy Reid's number one. I won't get myself in trouble because I'm going to go down one too. He's a top 5 coach. I'll say it safely. He's a top 5 coach, probably top 3 coach in this league right now. When you
I
look at the
would say
success
it's
he's had,
Andy Reid and him
he's up there. If
because
he wins, especially if he wins it.
everyone likes to give McVay all these flowers. Fine, you want to give him? He just beat McVay. He just
You
beat
know
McVay,
big time too. Twice in one season. Yeah, and
and
then you
this.
look at
Good, no
again,
good.
the McVay stuff. I think if anybody deserves the McVay credit, it should have been Jay Gruden because he had him on the staff. You had and you look at some of these other assistants he had on there as well too. All the guys went on to be head coaches. So Jay, if anything, even though they stunk at the time and they weren't as successful they were, Jay Gruden should deserve a lot more credit that he deserved for at least assembling that staff. Sure, McVay went on and then brought some of those other guys around there. We saw a tree, but I, I'm not. I probably shouldn't say this, but I don't care. There's a copy of the now the then Redskins, but the Commanders playbook when McVay was a head coach, well, an offensive coordinator there, and you look at it and the detail and everything else, and you see the way he said, and no wonder why I passed out. You see a lot of elements of the Kubiak Shanahan tree, yeah, they're in there. But you look at the way he involved that offense, and you see the way that, yeah, he's a brilliant mind. And that brilliant mind passed down that thanks to other coaches in the tree. Everybody looks at the tree, and I think everybody goes like, "Oh wow, that." Well, now Sirianni's tree is getting bigger too. Can't do that. So I think overall, yeah, he's up there. McVay's up there, but I think Sirianni beats him right now for sure.
Yeah, the reason why I go with Sirianni is this. I feel like Sirianni's doing it with two different types of teams. The team that went to the Super Bowl the first time was kind of a surprise, kind of caught people off guard. Jalen Hurts had a tremendous year throwing the ball. They were a good running team, not a prolific running team. Then they had a down year, but by down year they won almost 10. They won 10 games in a row. You know,
Yeah.
by down year, I'm thinking about that. By down year, they won 10 games in a row. We're still one of the best teams in the league for the better half of the year. Then they come back, they rebound, and this is a running team. This is a running offense, but they've got prolific players on the outside. They got they got a decent tight end who can make plays in the middle of the field. Yet they are a 100% a running team. And that gives credit. And then the reason why, bless you, the reason why I'm picking
Thank you.
them to win, and I can transition right into this is because of the differences in the team. They lost that first Super Bowl because Jalen had that fumble return for a touchdown. And because Patrick Mahomes was able to make plays running the ball. Patrick Mahomes was able to make plays with his feet. Well, the Eagles have I'll say, the more athletic linebacking core this year. And their strength of their defense is scheme, but it's also the way they fly to the ball. That's going to play a role in the Patrick Mahomes being able to make those black breaking third down runs. If he only gets one or two versus the 99 that he got in the first Super Bowl, that's going to create a problem for them because Kansas City, while as good as they've been all year, they haven't been that explosive on offense. So if the Eagles can run the ball and control the clock, which they will do, whether they get down by 10 or they're up by 10, they're going to stick to their offense. They're going to run the ball. There are going to be moments where you go, the ball, but don't run the ball. And I feel confident that this team will beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And it'll be partly because Nick Sirianni's play calling ability or his game plan, if you will.
I look at this. I think a lot of people. I don't. A lot of people haven't talked about this in a little bit. You look. This is going to be the third straight year they've seen the Chiefs. And I think also when we look back, started the Super Bowl. I think the special teams played a big role in that loss too, because look at their punt return and there's some other things coverage where they give them good things. So you got the first year, you got the Super Bowl, you lost. Last year's game, even with Sean Desai, they came up with a good game plan and they beat them
Yeah.
in Kansas City. So now you can build upon that. So now you got Spagnuolo and you got Andy looking like they may try some of the same stuff, but you actually have the guy who invented the defense this time that used that and successful, as opposed to having the professor. I like to call professor because he's a teacher thing, but
Yeah.
it was more like case study in terms of that. And they're going to play each other. And the funny thing is, they're going to play each other next year too, which is going to be fun again. Well, too. It's great. But I look at this game and I'm like, you know what? I think the defense plays a lot better in terms of that. I'm more worried about getting pressure with your front four against Patrick Mahomes because we know what in the playoffs right now, Vic is allowed, I think it was like 16.2, 16.3 blitz percentage on his defensive snaps. He's not blitzing that much. The Ravens only blitz fewer times than that. And so you better hope you get home. Not only you keep Mahomes in the pocket, you better hope you get home and hit him enough that starts to affect him. And that timing he started to look for Travis Kelce is thrown off completely. And then you better hope that, and we saw Joe Casper's safeties coach was working with Brent Selk, the former Eagles tight end, with CJ Gardner Johnson and Reed Blankenship. You better hope those guys can match up well against Kelce and throw him off your game and know that. And also Cooper DeJean because it's going to line up in the slot too. So that's a big ass, especially with the safeties, they're younger. They've seen him before. They played against him before in the Super Bowl. Cooper DeJean's a rookie, and he's playing really well as a rookie. But you got to watch that too. So you got to that is to make sure that nothing happens there. And the other one I watch is Xavier Worthy and Quinyon Mitchell when they have their Worthy's not their primary target, but 1-on-1.
Yeah.
I want to watch that.
Well, a couple things. You're not a rookie anymore after your first game. So, I know what you're saying, but you're not a rookie anymore in your first game. And I actually disagree. I'm pushing back on you on that one. I don't think you blitz him. I don't think you because they tried to blitz Jaden Daniels and it cost them. What they did, what broke that game open was their ability to fly to the ball and get turnovers. So if they focus on that versus trying to get that big sack or that big hit, that will go a longer way. Because the thing about the game you mentioned last year, and they talked about the receivers for Kansas City not playing well, dropping the balls. But what happened was, even you go back to the year before, the Eagles defense, old cliche, they lay that wood. They lay that wood. So it's not just a matter of Washington turning the ball over. No, the Eagles were knocking the snot out of them and causing those turnovers. That's why it's called forced turnovers because guys don't just come out and give you the ball. They're forced to have those turnovers. That's what I'm going to see. That's what I provision. Look, I'll say it. If these two things happen, the Eagles will win the Super Bowl. Number one, they get two turnovers. They get two turnovers, whether it's an interception or fumble, that gives them two extra possessions. That gives Saquon Barkley extra possessions to run the ball. That gives Jalen extra possessions to make plays. And I don't know why Jalen has to be the only quarterback in the NFL that makes plays from the pocket. Everybody else can have functional mobility where they can move around. But Jalen, no, Jalen, you got to be perfect in the pocket. But that gives A.J. Brown extra possessions to make plays, Devontae Smith extra opportunities to eat the middle of the field up. So they do that. The second thing is, if they get, I don't want to say double digit points, but if they get 9 or more points out of special teams, whether it's a kick return, whether it's a block punt, whether it's 3 field goals, something to get extra points out of your norm offensive sets. Those things matter. So if you get a 55, 60-yard field goal out of Jake Elliott, is it Jake Elliott? Why do I always, for some reason I always want to say Chris Bonio whenever I'm talking about the Eagles kickers.
Oh, I'm having flashbacks to that Monday night
Man,
game against the Cowboys.
for some reason I
Oh,
always yeah, if you get plays out of the kicking game, spectacular kicks like the 50+ yarders, that's going to galvanize the team. I really think that they do. I can't envision the first Super Bowl. I was like, and then when towards the end, I got mad. I didn't even watch the end when they got the pass interference. But this game, it just feels like a foregone conclusion to me. Just feels like they're the better team. Yeah, they've got Mahomes on the other side, but we've got our weapons, we've got our guys, we've got our snot rockers and Jalen Carter and Zach Brown. They've got their play, CJ Gardner, they've got their guys on the end that can make plays for them. And if the Eagles defense does what it's been doing every playoff game, Jordan Love did not stink when he got to Philadelphia. All of a sudden, J Lo is J No. You know what I mean? Matthew Stafford won a Super Bowl. All of a sudden, this dude can't hold on to the ball. These are Jay was killing the Lions. I think they're still driving on the Lions right now. At this very moment, they're still driving. But when he got to Philly, the Eagles dropped the nickel piece on him, and not the one Mike did in Madison Square Garden. This team has proven every step of the way that they're ready. They're up for the challenge. I love the Eagles in the Super Bowl. I don't know. I don't think it'll be a blowout, but like I said before, I think they control the game throughout.
When the way I look at this game, I can see it going. This is going to be a one possession game. And at first, you think of the Chiefs, just like, like Chiefs are one possession games. But I think it's going to be a different type of one possession game. The one possession game is that the Chiefs get the ball late in the fourth quarter, make it interesting, get it within four, and then it's like, okay, here comes Patrick Mahomes, what have you. But the Eagles do their one, their patented. All right, we got 7 minutes on the clock. All right, let's run the ball and do what they have to do. That
Yes.
they wear the clock down to like 50 something else, and I think they win the game. They win the game. I think they win the game 31-27.
Ooh. So you got them scoring 31 points, huh?
Yeah, I think it's 31-27
You
because
know, I
Barkley's
like
going to rip a couple of runs.
I love that storyline. I don't know if Saquon's got to have 20 or more carries this game. Not yards. Yards don't matter. He's got to have 20 or more carries because he's not going to break the 60-yarder every time. But if he gets that 3 yards, that 19, that 3 yards, that 2 yards, that 19, that 3 yard, you know what I mean? That's going to keep the flow of the game. But I just said this last week, and you kind of looked at me like I owed you money. But I'm going to say it again. Jalen Hurts doesn't lose these games. He just doesn't. Well, he lost the Super Bowl. He did. He did. He had the fumble, and that cost him the game. But you look throughout his career, Tampa Bay, right? And let's say the Super Bowl. Those are the only two times. And by the time they got to Tampa Bay, they were done. But we will include it. Those are the only two times he lost this game. These are the games he wins. These are the games where that laser focus, that dedication to I'm mixing my words here. That dedication to the meticulous fine art of his craft. This is where we see that. And I don't think for a minute that Patrick Mahomes is a worse quarterback. I don't think that, Jalen Hurts I don't think for a minute Jalen Hurts is the better quarterback. But I think this Sunday, this evening, on this moonlight, Jalen Hurts is going to show the world why I'm just as good as this dude across from me. It's just, I don't have a score for you. I could make up a score, but I don't think a score for you. But just remember those two things when they happen. And just remember Saquon getting those 20 plus carries. And we're going to have to sit here and talk about how good Nick Sirianni is as that coach. Because look, he is. He is. Tomlin's looked at as a great head coach. He's got one Super Bowl. Peyton, great head coach. But those guys had something that Sirianni didn't have. They had bona fide first ballot Hall of Famers. First round, Drew Brees was first pick in the second round. Again, Daniel Thomas was his first pick in the second round. So I guess Peyton didn't have that. But Jalen Hurts is going to be the first dynamic threat in a modern era to win a Super Bowl. So let's say John Elway, but by the time John Elway won, he was a shell of what he used to be. That's exciting, man. That's exciting. Final word for you.
I think it's also when you mentioned the no huddle stuff. I mentioned no huddle stuff earlier. I think that's when they break them. I think that's and don't be surprised if you see early on with trying to wear out Chris Jones and that middle of that offensive line. They try to go tempo early, wear them down, and then next thing you know, 2 yards. Okay, here we go again. 50,
Yep.
50, 60 yards and go down once I see that. And then also, I think Nick Sirianni's done a great. I agree with you when it comes to Sirianni in terms of Hurts. I think this is a time when people are going to start getting upset, and the new narrative, they'll try to find a way to. I think they win the game. Honestly, mention that. But I think people are going to try to change the goalposts again if he win it. Well, he won it, but he had all these great players behind him. Look at Montana. Put Montana like you
That's a
saw it
great
happen. You
point.
have Jerry Rice and,
That's a great
John
point.
Taylor.
And
He
Roger
had all that.
Craig, and
Yeah,
Frank Jones, and George Seifert, and Guy McIntyre, and Harris Barton. Like you can go on and on with that 49. And I don't believe Barton or McIntyre are in the Hall of Fame, but they were Hall of Fame. They were high level players many times. So that's a great point.
yeah.
Look, the thing that is going to impress us, and you can pick your MVP. Who you got winning MVP? I'll start with you. Let's start there.
I think it's going to be. It's the way everything's going there. It's a quarterback's go that way. It's going to be two tush pushes from Hurts. I got Hurts. He's going to have two touchdowns, and it's going to be a tush push. They're like, oh, two touchdowns, because we got the pay. I remember
What's
that
the
we got the
record for
paper.
touchdowns in the Super Bowl? Yeah. I don't know offhand. I want to
I
say
don't
it's
know
five.
offhand. I don't know offhand, but I remember. I think it's one of the things because they pass the paper around during the fourth quarter, and you write your Super Bowl pick down, you leave it, and what have you, and they pick it up, collect it, what have you. I can see it being one of those things where it happens, and it's like he gets two touchdowns, and the numbers are going to say like, wow, he get two throwing, two running, and oh my goodness, look at him, he's the best. So yeah, I think it's gonna be one of those things.
Yeah, I look forward to watching Jalen Hurts pick this thing because the Chiefs defense is good. There's no excuses for this game. Like when he does what he's going to do, there's no excuses. The Chiefs defense is one of the best in the league. They've been successful throughout the league. They shut down Lamar Jackson last year. They are bona fide top five defense. And the Eagles have weapons, granted, but they also got the ultimate weapon in Jalen Hurts' competitive fire. I be shocked if he loses this game because, like I said, he doesn't lose these games. And you consider AJ Brown on the outside. AJ Brown had what 5 catches last week,
Mhm.
but he had some big plays. Had some big plays, and one of the things that's funny about the NFC Championship game. So the Reds, I'm going to call them this. I blame you for that. The Commanders, and then we'll shut it down. The Commanders come down. They go for it on fourth down, fourth down, fourth down, fourth down, and they kick the field goal. She's like, man, Commanders, man, they marched down our throat. They kicked our butt. First play from scrimmage. First play from scrimmage, the guy that everybody was there, they're going to stop him this time. Well, last time, because he had a great first quarter, but then the other 3 quarters, it had nothing to do with Jalen Hurts being out of the game. He just struggled. He goes yard on. Like he just, and it was at that moment that you realized, yeah, this team this is a Super Bowl winner right here. This is it. This is it. They got all the storylines from Barkley. They got all the storylines from taking a guy in Barkley who was a forgotten player, who his team didn't want, got rid of. They got footage of them just saying, oh, he's all right, but he's not real. Jalen Hurts can't throw the ball. Jalen Hurts can't make the plays necessary to win. Jalen Hurts isn't one of the top quarterbacks. A.J. Brown is reading a book on the sidelines. Can you read a book on the sidelines? Nick Sirianni's cutting his hair, Big Dom, all the storylines that we've heard about the Eagles. We haven't heard this one storyline. That's a good mother freaking football team over there. And they're going to show the world just how good they are. And I love these birds that roll. And like I said, in the end, we'll be sitting here and we'll be talking about how great of a coach Nick Sirianni is. You think about what it was 364 days ago? That was not the case. Final word, Chris. So you got your MVP, you got your pick. Who is the guy? Who does this mean more for? And we only got a short amount of time, but I meant to ask you this question. So I'm going to get out. Does this Super Bowl mean more for Mahomes and the possibility of winning 3 straight, or Hurts and the possibility of winning his first?
I think
Who has more to gain? Not more to lose, but more to gain in a way.
it's Mahomes, and that's why I think a lot more of the pressure is going to be on the Chiefs for this whole entire game because you look at the chance for making history. Those Patriot teams we saw over times, and they weren't able to win 3 straight. They won 3 in 4 years, but nobody's ever won 3 straight. And to hear, you probably know they have Nike probably has a campaign for them ready to go out with it if they win. It's like all this stuff building up, and they may think like, oh no, it's cool. Yeah, I don't want to disrespect them by trying to do a Patrick voice, but yeah, you don't want to like, oh no, it's all cool. They know what's going on. They know that what's on the line here, and I think that's going to play in a role, and especially if it's close, leading into that, like late in the game, and you start thinking about all that stuff, like, man, we're favorites. We're the ones everybody's looking at. Everybody's good. and I hate bringing her name up on it, for Taylor Swift's looking
Here
and
we
keep
go.
doing the same sidelines.
Here we go.
All that pressure is from everybody's going to be on them, and then it's coming in. So I think it's a lot more on Mahomes to be able to do this just because of the historical aspect. Because Jalen Hurts can still get back, but he
Yeah.
probably will get back. I think this is a second of 3 Super Bowl between these two teams. I really do.
Yeah, I agree. I think they come back next year, and I actually believe it's Hurts that has more to gain because he hasn't gotten he's earned more respect than he's gotten, and the fact that people still consider him the weak link to me is baffling. So to me, it's Hurts, and I'm expecting him to rise to the occasion. No NFL team has ever won 3 straight, and while that's pressure on one hand, it's a formality or a foregone conclusion, if you will, that the Chiefs would lose because no team has done that. So if the Chiefs win, people will be more surprised that they won versus more expecting them to win. So that's why I say it's Hurts, and I just believe that Hurts wins this game. It puts him in a whole nother league, a whole nother stratosphere. Well, that's it for this episode. We'll be back next week. Talk a little bit of Super Bowl, I guess. So if you enjoyed the podcast, make sure you like, share, comment, subscribe, whatever your podcast platform allows you to do. He's Chris Franklin, NJ.com. I'm Kwame Fisher Jones. Until next week, we appreciate your time and year. You be easy.